Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wind Down Wednesdays. I'm your host, Paula Taylor, and this is episode 64. So I want to start by talking just briefly about my history of tarot. I got my first tarot deck in 2004 when I was with my sister in Salem, Massachusetts, which I thought was a really cool place. There are so many metaphysical stores and kind of witchy places there, as the history of, well, kind of a sad history of witchcraft in the United States. But I got this beautiful deck. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this deck in particular and the importance of choosing a deck that really calls to you. I picked this deck intuitively, and this is actually my second deck because my beagle chewed up a bunch of the cards on the old deck, and I still have it. It's actually on the altar in my room because I didn't want to let go of that energy, but some of the cards were kind of mangled, so luckily I was able to find a new deck, and this one is now probably a good 8 or 9 years old. I've been using this deck for a long time. So one of the reasons that I like tarot is that it's a really good way to bypass the ego. We talk about that a lot. We talk about stepping out of the ego. We talk about linking into our intuition. And tarot is a really good way to do that. If you're feeling unsure about something, if you're just looking for daily guidance, there's a lot of different ways you can use it. And one of the things I want to mention, because I am doing a collective poll tonight, I'm doing a poll for kind of everyone who's watching, and that might sound a little strange. But what I've noticed, and I think I've mentioned this before on the show, is that I'll be kind of going through something and then I'll talk to clients or friends, family members, and it seems like we're kind of all going through the same thing. And if you follow astrology or if you're in sync with kind of the new and the full moon, like there are patterns that happen collectively. And I mentioned a few weeks ago the collective conscious, that idea that there was this sort of consciousness that is available to all of us, that some of us pull from intuitively. That came from Carl Jung, I believe. So you can absolutely pull cards for yourself. You can pull cards for other people. You can pull cards collectively. There's really no limit to the way you use tarot. It's really limited only by kind of your doubts or your fears, your limitations, and then your imagination. There's a lot of different ways that you can use it. So one of the other things I wanted to mention is that most tarot decks will come with a book. And it's a little bit controversial about whether you should or shouldn't use the book. And that's one of the reasons I'm not using this live, because sometimes I still use my book. I still look things up. I like to do it intuitively. I like to get a feel for what's going on. I absolutely like to connect with the card and really look at it and see what comes up for me. But sometimes I feel like I need a little extra guidance, and that's where the little book comes in handy, and that's why it is really important to pick a deck that you feel called to. So I had a traditional tarot deck to start with. It didn't really do anything for me, and when I saw this Vision Quest deck back in 2004, however many years ago that was, it really connected to me. I do feel kind of strongly pulled by Native American imagery, and the way this card is worded, even the fact that we're using kind of air, earth, water, and fire rather than the traditional arcana or the suits kind of the tarot, all of this just calls to me. So it's important to find a deck that means something to you. There is a ton of decks. I know a girl on Instagram that I follow, a woman, I should say, the Femme Genius, who I've mentioned a few times. She's got a Golden Girls deck that always kind of makes me smile. I think she's got a Nightmare Before Christmas deck. So you can find a deck for you. You can also find oracle decks that are a little simpler than tarot if you're wanting to get into kind of guidance. I have a beautiful daily crystal deck that I just got recently, and I've been pulling one every day. And those are oracle cards. They're a little simpler than tarot. They just have kind of a simple phrase on them that connects with whatever the crystal is. And as I mentioned a couple weeks ago, I was called by these crystalline beings from another dimension to bring these dimensional frequencies into my body and the space around me and into other people as I move forward. And so I got that daily crystal deck as a way, I didn't realize it at the time, but I got it as a way to kind of connect more fully with those beings as I opened to these frequencies and this intuition, and it's really served me well. Excuse me. So there's a lot of really great ways to use tarot. I'm going to stop and take a sip of water. So I made just a quick list Everyday guidance is a great thing to do, as I mentioned, and oracle cards are good for that because they're pretty simple. If you're looking for clarity, the tarot can be a great way to look for clarity. I talked a few weeks ago about shining a flashlight into the swamp of sadness because it's so murky and we don't know what's going on. Or I've talked about kind of an iceberg or even the lighthouse. Like sometimes what's down below, we can't see very well. Our conscious mind, our ego is in the way of that. So using tools that help you bypass the conscious mind and connect directly with your intuition is a great way to get clarity. And that's one of the ways that I like to use tarot. And then it's a good way to connect with your higher self, to connect with that intuition. So keep an open mind if you're new to this. If it feels a little weird or uncomfortable for you, like that's okay. It's really about the same work that we always do, stepping outside of the ego, kind of getting clarity, expanding our mind and our energy field. So I'm not sure if I'm going to pull one card. I'm not exactly sure. That's one of the things about tarot that's really fun, but feels a little bit scary, is that it is really intuitive. And that's why I'm doing this pre-recorded. So if I just completely crash and burn, I can kind of pause the video and start over again. That's not my intention, but having that safety net there is helping me feel a little more comfortable because I've never done this in a group setting before. I've been reading cards for myself since I got this deck and for my friends and family. I use cards sometimes with clients to help bring clarity or sometimes to kind of set an intention for a session. Sometimes I'll be called to pull a card at the end of a session to help give a client an idea of something to walk away with or kind of an action step, something to work on. So it is something that I really use a lot, and I wanted to bring it into these Wind Down Wednesdays and do this collective card pull. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how I pull. It's important to have a little bit of a ritual around this, and your ritual does not have to be anything like mine. I'm going to describe mine just so that you understand. Just like anything else we do, intention is what matters here. So doing this intentionally, holding your cards with intention. When you get your cards initially, some people say you need to clear them. I don't clear as much as a lot of people say they do or that you need to, even with my crystals, because I do so much work with intention and with sound. So I like to hold my cards before I shuffle them. I pull my cards intuitively. A lot of people will shuffle and just pull the first card that comes up. So you might ask me like, well, why do you even shuffle if you're just going to like intuitively go through and pull a card? For me, the shuffling is what clears the cards and sets the intention. So I've used these cards, many, many times for many, many people for many reasons. So in order to pull this collective card for us on this day of September 29th and this kind of surrounding time, I am going to hold my cards with the intention of pulling for this group at this time. And as I shuffle my cards, I am going to do the same thing. I'm going to think about what my intention is. I'm going to hold the energy of my intention in my cards as I shuffle. And I shuffle in a specific way. You don't have to do that. The idea of shuffling, again, is just to kind of bring intention. So I'm going to just do this. It's probably going to make a bunch of weird noise on the podcast, but I'm shuffling cards. So I'm holding the intention of pulling cards for whoever ends up watching this video at whatever time they end up watching this video. That's the other thing. I'm pulling this on a specific date or for a specific date for a specific group. But one of the great things about tarot is that you take the meaning out of it that you want, that speaks to you. So once I've shuffled my cards, I might sit for a second with just that intention or holding a little bit of energy to kind of help direct the pull that I'm going to do. Again, this episode will be out kind of indefinitely once it reaches YouTube. So whenever you're watching this, as always, take what rings true to you, leave what doesn't, maybe just allow it to let you think. Open your mind a little bit if you've never done this before. So what I usually do is kind of spread my cards in a fan on a surface. It's just a little easier to kind of find the cards. So you can't actually see the cards. But what I'm doing now, I have them fanned out and I'm just going to kind of lightly hover my hand And just as I would if I was doing energy work on a person and letting myself be called to where the body needs work, I'm doing the same thing with the cards. So I'm going to pull a card. I don't know exactly what for yet until we look at it. I don't know if I'm going to pull more than one. We're just going to see kind of what happens here. All right, so I've got our card. And then sometimes I will, interesting, sometimes I will kind of move my cards so I have a little bit more space. So what I pulled is the Lovers. And this does correspond with traditional tarot. This is a major arcana card. So there's major and minor arcana. We're not going to go into the nitty gritty of this. You can learn a lot about tarot. There's a ton of books out there. When you pull a major arcana card, it's kind of like a power card as opposed to a minor arcana card. So the first thing I'm going to do is just look at this card. I showed it to you on the camera. I'm going to kind of look and see. Oh, and it's just so beautiful. It's giving me this like rush of love looking at this card. I'm going to show it again. And if you're listening to the podcast, I realize that you're probably missing out. You can always go back to my YouTube channel, which is Paula Taylor Energy, if you feel strongly about seeing the video for this, or just listen and I'm going to talk about what I'm looking at. I'm going to describe the card. So I'm going to tell you what I see here, and then I'm going to tell you what's coming to me intuitively as I pulled this card. So what I see in this picture are a man and a woman kind of gazing lovingly at each other. But what I feel from this is actually it's you looking at yourself. And it's so interesting. It's giving me like tingles and making me a little teary, because this is what we're going to do on our meditation tonight. We're going to do an inner child meditation. And that's kind of what this work is really learning to gaze at yourself with love, really learning to see yourself in all your forms. So even though there's a man and a woman on this card, there's a masculine and a feminine part of all of us. So what I see here is kind of this merging of the masculine and the feminine, really seeing each other for who we are, really seeing the part of ourself that is masculine and feminine and divine masculine and feminine, rather than this toxic sort of masculinity that we see everywhere. And there's toxic femininity. I mean, the way that women have been raised to kind of cut each other down and just like all of that stuff, the mean girl stuff, that's toxic femininity. So what I see in this card is this call to move forward into divine femininity and divine masculinity, and to recognize that in ourselves and in each other, and to look at that with love. And then in the background here, there's a beautiful waterfall, which of course instantly makes me think of our waterfall of joy. So to me, they're standing in their sanctuary in front of this waterfall of joy, looking lovingly into each other's eyes, into their own eyes, recognizing the divinity in each other, recognizing that divine masculine and feminine. And then in the front, in the foreground of this, it's very lush and green. This feels like a very kind of earthy, beautiful grounding card as well. There's that flow of water coming down into the earth. And then the water, of course, is what fuels the earth. The water is allowing these beautiful flowers to grow in the front. There's a couple of little frogs looking on. And to me, I feel like that's kind of showing us the nature that's involved, reconnecting us with nature, reconnecting us with our role in the order of nature. We have stepped so far outside of that, as human beings, that we no longer, most of us no longer recognize what it's like to be part of an ecosystem, to really feel like you're part of the earth, to really feel connected to the earth, to really thank the earth for the gifts that it gives us in the form of beautiful flowers and animals and food. So to me, this card feels very connecting. It feels connecting to the earth. It feels connecting to flow, that waterfall kind of flow of that beautiful joy that we connect with every week in our meditations. And then this connecting of these two people, whether that it's the two people within you, that divine masculine and feminine, whether it's a relationship you have. And it doesn't matter what the sex of the other person is in this relationship, because again, Everyone has divine masculine and feminine. And that's one of the reasons that the idea of gender as this like binary system that we've created really doesn't make a lot of sense, because there's a spectrum, there's a flow, and being able to flow effortlessly from the masculine into the feminine, and letting that really exist inside of us without any barriers, without any limitations, being able to draw from that beautiful divinity, whether it's expressing itself through that feminine kind of receiving or the more active masculine. It's a beautiful dance. It's a beautiful way to see yourself. And as we're going to get into our inner child meditation here in just a few moments, again, I see these people gazing at each other with such love. And what I feel for our specific show tonight, and for what we're going to talk a little bit about trauma and how that affects us as children and lives in us, if we can be really present with ourselves in love, in that flow of divine joy, that is how we heal trauma. That is how we let things go. And I realize, ooh, man, it's feels really powerful to me, and I'm getting emotional with the power of this message, and just how amazing it is to me that things work out as they're meant to. I had no idea what card I was pulling. I didn't know whether I was going to pull more than one, and we're just going to stick with this one because we got so much information from this one card that just effortlessly kind of leads into our meditation. So that's a little bit about tarot, a little bit about my relationship with tarot. I hope that you got something out of that. And if you didn't, that's okay. But it is a great way to kind of connect deeper. It's a great way to go deeper. It's a great way to get some clarity and kind of clear away some of that ego garbage, which I feel energetically, just like holding this card and doing that reading, I feel clearer. And now I know as we get into the meditation that energy will come into the meditation and make it even more powerful. So I want to talk just briefly about trauma and inner child work. We're not going to go into a lot of detail. We've done a little bit of this before. You can read a lot of books about the inner child. You know, there are therapists and people who specialize in just doing that work. It's very healing. I find it to be a really important tool to have in my spiritual tool belt. And so what I want to talk about briefly before we start is that trauma really comes from scarcity. It comes from not being safe. So I'm thinking here especially of like physical and sexual trauma. You know, there's a giant element of not being safe there, a scarcity of safety if you are being physically attacked or molested or, you know, assaulted sexually in any way. There's also safety fears with emotional trauma. If you've been verbally abused or gaslighted, anything like that, gaslighted, whatever, there's an element of safety there. There's an element of not being loved in trauma or being unlovable. A lot of people who have been through trauma come out of it feeling like they're unlovable, that there's nothing they can do to be worthy of love. And then that's the third part of this, is there's an element of being not worthy. And sometimes that presents as like, I deserved it. I deserved it when you hit me. I deserved it when you raped me because I was wearing a short dress, which is total crap. And I'm not going to get into that right now, but there's an element of feeling unworthy, whether it's feeling like you sort of did something to bring it on, whether it feels like if you were more worthy, that wouldn't have happened to you. But those are kind of the three things that came to me when I was thinking about trauma and inner child work. And so I did this meditation spontaneously the other day. I was actually walking on my treadmill, and it was so powerful. And I knew that I had to share it here. And essentially, what we're going to do is we're going to visit our inner child at various points during our lives and use a mantra. And the mantra that came to me is, you are safe, you are loved, and you are light. And when I was doing this for myself, I added an extra phrase about my body because I was struggling with that kind of body worth and feeling uncomfortable in my body. So I added a phrase about my body. So you are more than welcome to add an extra affirmation or an extra phrase to the mantra tonight that I am safe, I am loved, I am light. And we're going to say it actually to ourselves. So it will be, you are safe, you are loved, and you are light. Those three statements are very powerful. And as I did this meditation, I went all the way from birth to like age 30. And I finished it with just like this beautiful, radiant smile on my face. I'm walking on my treadmill, like just like smiling and feeling so joyful. And I really do feel like it released a lot of those scarcity feelings that came up, and trauma can be anything. Sometimes I mention trauma as this big thing, but kids being mean to you at school, that's traumatizing. Little moments that stick out in your mind, stick out probably because they were traumatizing. It could have been something someone said to you. It could have been a small encounter you had with someone, even like in the store or something, when somebody is a stranger to you. So what makes a trauma is essentially the way we respond to it and the way we hold it in our bodies. And so part of our spiritual work is to clear that old trauma out of our energetic field, physically out of our energetic field. So we're going to do that tonight using intention, using this exercise of really just giving so much love to our child self. We're going to start as a baby. We're going to hold ourself. So it's really important that you make physical contact with yourself during this meditation. And I don't mean like touching yourself in the room, but when you're visualizing, when you're using your intention, when you're talking to yourself as a baby, hold your baby, look your baby in the eyes, give your baby the love that you needed as a baby, as you say this really powerful mantra to your baby. So we're going to travel through our lives. I'm not sure how far we'll go. We may stop around like early adulthood, just so this doesn't end up being like a really, really long meditation. But you can come back and do this anytime you want. You can also stop anytime you want. So this work might be challenging. It might be scary. So as usual, you can step back as you need to. You can come back and do this again. And instead of starting from a baby, you can kind of start from where you left off. Like my intention was to go back and do this meditation again and start from where I left off about age 30 and then move forward to my current age. And you can do this in chunks. Absolutely. So at any point during this journey, if you feel like you want to stay with a certain age that your child is, just stay there and keep repeating the phrase as I guide us to move further. You don't have to go all the way through this. If you start to get a trauma response, if you start to get that sympathetic, kind of heartbeat increasing where you're feeling kind of like panicked, you can use that breath that we used a couple weeks ago where you breathe in, draw the pelvic floor as you breathe out and hold it. You can use the oxytocin breathing. You can physically get up and move around, take a sip of water, whatever you need to do to kind of bring yourself back in. Come completely out of the meditation if you need to. Take care of yourself here because this can be really intense work. It's really powerful work. And if you've never done this before, the idea of getting into these traumas and moving through them as quickly as we're going to do in this meditation might be a little bit overwhelming. So be gentle with yourself. Take a break if you need to. Stop if you need to. Stick right with, just hold yourself as a baby through the entire meditation and keep repeating the mantra if that's what works for you. So you might have a difficult time visualizing this or connecting with this baby or, this inner child you, especially if you've never done this before. So use intention. If you're having a hard time seeing this, you don't have to see yourself as you were, you don't have to see pictures of yourself. The intention is what does the work here. The intention that you're giving this beautiful divine version of yourself, whatever they needed at the time that they didn't get. You're reinforcing that you are safe, you are loved, and you are light. And that's the most important part of this is having that intention and really expressing this. So we're going to do what we usually do and kind of get really grounded in and into our body, invite our flow in so that we feel really good and safe. You can do this in your energetic sanctuary. If that feels safer to you, you can do this in your waterfall of joy, which maybe that's one of the reasons this card came out, is to tell me to guide you there. That would be a beautiful place to do this with all of that divine joy and love flowing in the background. So make sure as you do this mantra that you're really speaking to yourself. You can do it out loud. that's a really beautiful way to do this. And I will be saying it out loud to kind of help bring that energy into your space. You can strongly think it in your mind if you're not comfortable speaking out loud, or if you're doing this meditation in a place where you can't speak out loud. But as we did the last time we did mantra, really do this with intention. Really feel this kind of from that deep part of your pelvis, and let it flow, and really be present for this as much as you can be. And as usual, you can always come back to it. So let's meditate together. So get nice and comfortable for this meditation. You can lay down, you can sit up, whatever feels good to you here. Try to stay awake, but if you fall asleep, that's fine too. You want to feel really safe for this. If there's something that helps you feel safe in your environment, if you have a token, something that you want to hold on to, maybe it's a crystal or something, maybe it's a stuffed animal. I still have a lot of stuffed animals that I love. If it's wrapping yourself in a blanket, just get nice and cozy here. And let's begin, as we often do, with 3 deep oxytocin breaths, breathing in through the nose, drawing the belly out, and then sighing that out with an audible ha sound. And as you sigh these breaths out, continue to do this even if you've reached your 3, maybe do 5 or 6. As you sigh this out, allow your mind to kind of travel through the body as you make that nice ha sound, and really send the energy down and into the earth. We're getting really grounded and connected to the earth here. You can bring your energetic sanctuary to you now. Maybe you're seeing that beautiful waterfall that was on the tarot card we looked at earlier. Standing near your own waterfall of joy. If you've never been there before, just imagine you're at the most beautiful, the safest space you can imagine, and there's a beautiful waterfall there. And the water that's coming down in that waterfall is actually this divine energy, this divine light that we call in every week. So allow that water, allow that energy to flow into the top of your head. Really open the crown chakra and be present for this. Let that water, let that beautiful light and love flow through your head and your neck. Let it come down into your arms and into your chest and upper back. Allow this waterfall to effortlessly flow down into your belly, into your low belly and low back, into your hips and pelvis. And maybe take one more deep oxytocin breath, and as you sigh it out, let that love, that light, that beautiful water flow all the way down through your legs, through the knees and the lower legs, into the ankles and the feet. Get really present here, really grounded. Feel that flow of energy. Let yourself feel very safe here. Recognizing that nothing can come into this energy if it's not invited. If you do revisit any traumas, remember that you're not in that trauma. You're giving love to yourself who was in the trauma at the time, but you're in this beautiful, safe space. You've grown, you've changed, you've matured. You're doing this beautiful spiritual work of bringing clarity and expansion and harmony into your physical and energetic bodies. So as we step into this, as we get connected with our inner child, just remember that you are safe through this entire process. And as you're ready, just begin to picture yourself as a baby. And again, you don't have to have a very clear visual. You don't have to picture yourself as you really were. If that helps, you can. But let yourself become connected to that inner part of you that still is this brand new baby that came into the world with so much hope and expectation, and who deserved love and joy and still does. Perhaps you're visualizing that you're holding this baby. That's important. Bring the intention that you're holding your baby, you're cradling yourself as a baby. Or maybe you're holding your baby to your heart. This isn't a real baby, so you don't have to worry about smothering your baby. Just get really connected with your baby. And if you're comfortable, if you can, Look into the eyes of your baby as you do this exercise. Hold your baby and look lovingly into this baby's eyes and recognize how much love and light this baby deserves to have, how much divinity is in this baby. And as you're ready, as you're looking at your baby, say the mantra with me or after me if you like, aloud or silently. You are safe. You are loved. You are light. Look into your baby's eyes as you say this. Maybe you say it again. Really send that love, that feeling of safety to your baby here. And you can stay here repeating this mantra as we move on. You can move on with us. Whatever feels right to you, you can come back and do this as many times as you like, focusing on whatever age calls to you or just moving forward as we are now. Maybe you give your baby a kiss and look deeply into your baby's eyes one more time and say, you are safe. You are loved. You are light. And now see yourself somewhere in the toddler years. It doesn't matter exactly when. Somewhere in those years where you're kind of not totally sure of your physical body. You're kind of rediscovering or just discovering what it's like to walk, to be able to move with authority, discovering a little bit of independence. Just focus on whatever age comes to you here, somewhere between about the age of 1 and 3. And here again, pick up your little toddler self. Hold your toddler self. Look into the eyes of your toddler self and recognize how much love and safety your little toddler self deserved. And then say the mantra, you are safe. You are loved. You are light. And again, you can add anything you like that comes to you intuitively here. Really feel this as you hold your toddler self. Let your toddler self feel this, how safe and loved they are, how divine they are, that divine light shining through. And again, once more, look at your toddler self and say, you are safe. You are loved and you are light. And again, you can stay here and continue to repeat this mantra to yourself at this age if it feels like it's calling you. If you'd like, then we're going to move on to early childhood. So here we're looking about ages 3 to 6 or so. Again, just whatever comes to you is fine. If there's a specific moment that comes to you, focus on that. And here, you can either hold your child self, kind of pick your child self up, or you can just begin to kind of hold your child self's hand, but in some way physically connect to your child self here. Whatever your child self is calling for, whatever feels good to you here. Again, look into the eyes of your child self here and see how much love and safety this little child deserved. See how much beautiful divine light is shining out of this child. And then state the mantra. You are safe. You are loved. You are light. And let yourself really feel this. Let yourself feel this come into your current heart space as you send this love to your little child self who deserved so much love, unconditional love, and who is unconditional love, who is that light, that divine light that makes all of us up. And one more time, look at your child self at this age and say the mantra. You are safe. You are loved. You are light. Again, you can stay here if you'd like, but if you're ready to move on, then we're moving to kind of middle childhood here. We're looking at about 7 to 10 or 11, somewhere in this range. Pre-middle school, junior high, maybe late elementary school. And again, make physical contact with your child self here. Maybe you're hugging your child self, maybe you're holding your child self, or just holding their hand. Whatever feels good to you intuitively is the right thing to do here. But look into your child's eyes and see how much safety and love they deserved at this age. And then state the mantra. You are safe. You are loved. You are light. And again, really feel this here as you connect to your child self. You are safe. You are loved. You are light. And again, notice any shifts in your own body as you say this. Maybe something's releasing deep inside as you do this beautiful work, as you acknowledge the divinity of this beautiful child. And again, you can stay here, but if you'd like to move ahead, we're moving to those ever so difficult middle school onset of puberty years. We're looking at about 11 to 14 or 15 here. And this is such a difficult age. This is a time when you're really starting to try to be independent from your family. Your body is changing. Your feelings are changing. There's so much going on. So do so much love here. Bring so much love to this child version of yourself. And perhaps now you're standing in front of your child self, just holding hands together, looking into each other's eyes. Show this version of your child self how much love you have for them, how much love and safety they deserve. Let them see what a beautiful adult you will become. Let them see that there's a way through this difficult part of their lives. And then state the mantra. You are safe. You are loved. You are light. And say it again. You are safe. You are loved. You are light. Stay here if you'd like. You may want to revisit these years. There's a lot of traumas that kind of start to get stuck at this age for many of us. So stay here or move on. Come back to this whenever you'd like. But as you're ready, we're moving into that teenage self, that kind of 14 or 15 to about 19-year-old. And I don't know about you, that was a tough time for me. So just be present here for a moment with your teenage self. There's so much energy at this time, and we don't know what to do with it. We don't know how to handle it. Sometimes it causes us to make decisions that we regret later. So just really be present with this teenage version of yourself and allow them to see you. Allow them to see how far that you have come. Allow them to see how safe you are now, even if they didn't feel very safe then. And then look deeply into your teenage self, into their eyes, and state the mantra. You are safe. You are loved. You are light. And again, you are safe. You are loved. You are light. Give yourself a big hug here. Really let your heart space meet up with your teenage self's heart space. So much pain in this area in these years for many of us. So many feelings of being unloved or unlovable. Let this love flow directly into the heart space of your teenage self and recognize how much light there was at this time, even if you didn't have access to it then. Send it there now. Send it to this version of yourself that still lives within you. This is a wonderful place to stay. This is a wonderful place to come back to as many times as you need. But we are going to move forward if you'd like. So now focusing on this version of yourself as a young adult in the early 20s here, maybe 20 to 26 or so, recognizing the struggles of trying to be an adult and not quite being comfortable there yet, trying to establish yourself as a grown-up. And recognize that there may be a lot of safety fears that came up during this time of being out on your own, of trying to start a life. So really hold this young adult version of yourself in whatever way feels good to you, holding hands or hugging. Look into their eyes and state the mantra. You are safe. You are loved. You are so much light. You are safe. You are loved. You are light. Really allow this feeling to come into your current body here. We're not going to go any further in this meditation. You can come back as many times as you'd like, continuing to move forward in your life until you've reached your current age, and I encourage you to do so. But this is a lot of work that we've just done, and this may have been difficult for you. It may have brought up some emotions. So just sit for a moment. Let yourself experience anything you need to. Let the tears flow if they're coming. Take some nice deep breaths, oxytocin breaths, if you'd like, to help bring yourself back into that parasympathetic, that relaxation response. But for just a moment here, hold all of these selves from your birth to your mid-20s or so. And just look at how beautiful you are. Look at the divinity that was in you in all of these ages, whether or not you felt it or saw it. So much worth, so much light. And once again, repeat the mantra to all these versions of yourself. You are safe. You are loved. You are light. And gently release these versions of yourself. Perhaps they take a brief baptism in that waterfall of joy, a brief dunk in that beautiful, joyful energy of love, of unconditional light. And allow yourself to step in there as well, really washing away anything that came up that you're ready to let go of in this meditation. Noticing the shift in your body. Perhaps you're sitting a little taller. Perhaps you're feeling a little more expanded. Perhaps you're feeling a little bit upset, and that's okay. Sit with those feelings. Journal on those feelings. Come back to those feelings as you can. Come back to the meditation and repeat it until you get to that point of feeling free and expanded. And you will get there. I promise you will get there. Just spend a few moments in this waterfall, calling in that beautiful light, that bliss, that joy that is divine, unconditional love. And speak to yourself now at your current age, in your current state. I am safe. I am loved. I am light. Really let yourself feel this as you say it one more time. I am safe. I am loved. I am light. As you're ready, very slowly step out of your waterfall, bringing that joy, that peace, that love with you. That sense of worth, of safety, and of being so loved and so lovable. Come back to your body now. Maybe wiggle your fingers and toes a little bit. And affirm with me out loud. I am fully present in my body. I am fully present in my body and I am safe. I am fully present in my body and I am loved. I am fully present in my body and I am light. If you'd like, you can gently allow that crown chakra to close or keep it open for the highest good and the highest good only. And once more, let that beautiful waterfall of joy, of love flow in through your head and your face, through your neck and throat and your shoulders, through the arms and hands, into the chest and the back, into the belly and the back, the low belly and the low back, into the hips and the pelvis, into your legs, all the way down into your feet. Feel that strong support, that connection with the ground. Take a nice deep oxytocin breath and sigh it out. And again, draw that energy all the way down through the body and then release it into the earth to be recycled for the highest good. Open yourself to your highest good. Open yourself to that merging of divine masculine and feminine in all versions of yourself, in all ages of yourself. And as you're ready, you can open your eyes. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this special episode of Wind Down Wednesday and this really powerful meditation. Come back to it as many times as you'd like. Repeat it until you get all the way to your current age. And I guarantee you it will bring some lightness and joy as you do this inner child work. Have a beautiful rest of your day or evening. Have a luminous rest of your week. And I will see you next week for Wind Down Wednesday.